So, yesterday I finished James A. Caster's A Guide to Quitting Social Media, and I realised that was the last of the James A. Caster books that I had to read. And then I picked up Artemis, which I got 3 for 2 at Works, and I realised this is also the last Andy Weir book that I have to read, because I have already read The Martian and Project Hail Mary, and I thought, challenge accepted. So essentially, this is going to be a series, hopefully, about books that I read where I'm reading the last in the backlist of an author that I've really enjoyed. The first of which being Andy Weir's Artemis. Now, in this, you have the main character, Jazz, who is a smuggler. She lives on the moon in a city called Artemis, where the rich prosper and the poor suffer, a tale as old as time. When she stumbles across a bundle, I guess, of contraband that almost seems too good to be true, she actually falls prey to that classic idiom, and a whole bunch of shenanigans start. Now, like I said, this is the last book by Andy Weir that I have to read. I've heard it's not his best, but I've also heard that a lot of people think that because the main character is a woman, and it feels a lot like internalized misogyny, because actually the plot and the writing style is very, very similar. So I'm going to give this a start. I'm going to read along with my audiobook because my mum is coming to visit this week. So hopefully I can get a few backlist final reads ticked off, starting with this one. So I'm going to go start tidying up because my mum's coming and let you know what I think. Okay, I'm in the last 100 pages of Artemis, and I can absolutely see why some people won't like this as much as others, but I actually really enjoy this. So basically, the main character, Jazz, is a criminal, but she's a kind of low-level smuggler, heavily relied upon, etc. But she then gets tangled up in something that is basically holding the city up on stilts that are not particularly stable, and she is potentially a part of the puzzle to bring that down, but also maybe make it more of a solid foundation. So it's a really interesting kind of dichotomy between her being a good person, but morally good, ethically bad, I think is probably the best way that I would use to describe her. And I'm really, really liking that. I kind of like the fact that it's a mixture between, like, the classic heist story of, like, Six of Crows meets Project Hail Mary, with all the space stuff. And I think at the start of it, I kind of just wanted more space and science and women in STEM kind of vibes, and then towards the end, now that we're getting fully into the story, and like I said, I've got like 100 pages left, that's where it's kind of all kind of falling into place, and she's putting her plan into action, and she's got her crew that have been fully developed throughout and kind of interacted with to varying degrees, which is really, really interesting. And the bad guys are on their way. So I have actually really, really enjoyed this. I've been pleasantly surprised, but I can see why this isn't people's favourites, because it doesn't have those same isolationist like themes or kind of introverted contemporary themes that the others do. This is in general a lot more commercial sci-fi with a heist subplot, basically. The fact that it's set on the moon is almost secondary. It is obviously a key plot point, but it could be set anywhere, and the dynamic would be very, very little. Like, very little would change about the dynamic. But I can see what they're doing. I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. It's not my favourite by any stretch, but I have really enjoyed it. And I think if you've been umming and ahhing about whether you want to read it because you're not sure if it's going to be as good, I get it. But just take it off your backlist because it will totally be worth it. I'm going to finish this one, and then I think I've got one more Skullduggery Pleasant book to read of the entire thing, because I've read all the spin-offs. I think it's just Bad Magic, which is the YA graphic novel. Really, really excited to get to that. So I will finish this. I've done quite a bit of work today. I'm generally really tired, so I'm going to have a bit of a break now and just listen to this whilst I play some games and stuff, as opposed to tidying or working. Because it's been a long day. It's been a really long day. You haven't seen it, but it's been a really long day. So I'm going to do that, play some games, and then I'm going to start Bad Magic when I'm done. Okay, so having finished that last one, I do have Bad Magic by Derek Landy to read. Now, this is the last Derek Landy book I have to read after picking up and finishing A Mindful of Murder, which is the first in his new trilogy. But this is the only one of the Skullduggeries that I haven't read. Technically, can't say author completed it, because there are 2 books in his Demon Road trilogy that I'm just not going to read. I read the first book, Demon Road, didn't enjoy it, have no interest in reading it. It just reminded me way too much of what's that Gods one? American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and I just did enjoy that. So I'm going to be reading this afternoon. But in the meantime, I have loads of work to do. And I realised that I also had this absolute behemoth by Scott Lynch, which is the third in the Lies of Lachlan Mora trilogy. There are more books to come, but this is the last book out, so I can count this as another author completed and a series completed once I finish this one. Now, the reason I haven't read this one, you can tell that this one is absolutely pristine, which the last book was not, because the first two I have read thoroughly twice, but the ending of the second one was so much the first time I read them that I never actually got around to reading this one. So this is the only one that's not technically a reread. But I'm still really, really excited to get to this one. But I have no idea. Going into it, I have no idea what's going to happen other than that it's going to traumatise me because it's Scott Lynch. But my plan is to get these two done today. I don't think I'm going to finish this because the audiobook is 24 hours long. And as said, behemoth. But because my plans today are essentially to get some writing done, get some work done, and pack all of the subscription boxes, there's a lot of things that will involve me moving around. That means listening to an audiobook is exactly how I want to spend my time. So, going to be working on this one. I have no idea what the plot of this one's going to be, but I know they're coming for the Bonds Mage, which if you've read the series, you'll understand. I'm not going to go too much into this one. Other than general thoughts of like writing style and plot and stuff, because you have to read the first two to understand what this series is. But I'm hyped for my day. I will say though, I spent the day yesterday in Oxford with my mum. I have zero B-roll for that. Zero B-roll because I just spent the day with my mother. But if you are a patron, you will have seen on my Patreon the photos from that, which is great. That I had a really, really nice day, but my body hurts today and I'm clearly suffering from stress. Now, I'm not currently stressed. I've had some like really good news recently, but clearly in the preamble of that, I have overdone it because I was getting these like marks on my tongue, which I Googled and are a symptom of stress, and my eye. You can't see it on camera. This eye is swollen. It's not massively swollen, but all on like the inside here, and it's irritated. It's painful, but it's kind of like a toothache kind of painful, where both having it open and closed hurts, and you do the other thing thinking it's going to make it better and it makes it worse. So I hate that for me. So once I'm done with these very, very minimal tasks, I am going to call it a day early today. So that does mean I will have more time for reading, but it also means that I just need to take the time. I just need to chill out. So that is my plan. I am currently, I will just quickly show you, currently chilling on Lizzie's Reading Sprints. Lizzie is tired currently. Love that for them. And I'm also making graphics for a play that I'm helping out behind the scenes with. So that's fun. But I'm going to leave you here and let you know what I think initially of this, which I'm sure is going to be that it's wonderful once I'm started. But just so you understand the commitment that I'm making to this thing, it's 723 pages. This one is not, which is a relief. But yeah, so I'll catch you up when I'm about 100 pages in, I guess. So you remember 2 seconds ago when I said that I was going to catch you up when I reached the 100-page mark? That was a week ago. And I'm now 100 pages to go. But I can explain. So here's what happened. Did some work, listened to some audiobook, and then the following day, the Wednesday, I went and hung out with my mum in Oxford. Now, my mum has never been to Oxford, but I have shown many a friend around Oxford. So I did the exact same route that I did around Oxford with Olivia and Celine and Sian and Priscilla, showing them around my favourite spots, essentially. We went to like the botanical gardens and we did the Bodleian and we just did like, we did a cream tea. It was lovely, right? I was dog tired at the end of the day. Had a really nice day. Had a really, really nice day hanging out with my mum, but was dog tired at the end of the day. And then I had to go to a rehearsal. Now, I am not acting. I am acting as prompt. And that basically means I'm sat there just reading the script whilst the actors learn their lines. And then if they struggle, I can be there to prompt them. And I didn't have to be at the rehearsal, but I was going to be taking some photos. Unfortunately, there weren't many people there, so I couldn't really do that. But by that point, I was already there. So by the end of the night, I was even more dog tired. And then I got chatting to the lead actress, Katie. We were talking about the social media that we want to do for the play that we're promoting. We were talking about that. So I didn't get home until like 11:30 midnight. I was really, really tired. And I must have been just rubbing my eyes too much, because I curled up into bed and then my eyes started to hurt. And I was like, that's weird. And I went down to the bathroom and I had a look and there was nothing there. And it was a little bit sore, but it was fine. The next day, when I tell you, I was in agony. I was in agony. My eye was streaming, it was puffy, and it was just this eye. This eye was fine. This eye was puffy, it was red, it was irritated, it was itchy, and then it was fine again. For like 20 minutes, my eye was streaming, and then I was fine. And I was like, okay, is it a stye? Is it conjunctivitis? Is it this, that, and the other? No symptoms, nothing, it's fine. And then in the afternoon, it flared up again. And when I tell you, it was painful. It was like, you know when you get an eyelash in your eye and it hurts? It was like that, except it was like glass. It was so painful. And then it would just be fine. And then it'd be slightly irritated, and then it'd be fine. And then it'd be painful, and then it'd be fine. And this went on for a week. A week. It is Thursday. The following week. And I can finally see, without having to worry that my eye's going to flare up. I called 111, I spoke to my GP, and basically there was nothing they could do about it. I tried eye drops to like soothe it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it made it worse. I did the classic tea bag trick where you rest a hot tea bag on your eye. That worked sometimes and made it worse other times. So I got to the point where my coping mechanism for the agony that I was experiencing in my eye was to just clench my fists and pray and then just crack on with my day. So working was really, really hard. Reading, nigh impossible. But audiobooking, which is what I've been doing I've been mixing this with audiobook and reading along. Like the first 100 pages, sure I read, but like that big old chunk in the middle, that's audiobook. And I've devoured it, basically. And I've really, really enjoyed it. So I'm not going to go too much into the plot, essentially, because this is the third of the series. But what's really interesting is I was telling people ages ago that I wanted to read a proper pirate book. I wanted it to feel swashbuckly. I wanted it to feel like Pirates of the Caribbean. I wanted it to have romance. And book 2, Red Seas Under Red Skies, was that. And now I'm in the process of discussing play stuff, which I'm going to do a whole video about. And they're on a play. The whole thing is this whole like plot centers around like politics and a play, and it's very topical, weirdly topical. I will say that this was written in 2013, and there is some 2013 language with regards to learning difficulties. Let's just say that. Don't appreciate that. But generally really, really enjoying this. Now, if you haven't read anything by Scott Lynch, the Gentlemen Bastards are a group of thieves that live in a city called Camorra that feels very like Venice. It's canals, it's very like, I mean, you can even tell from that, it's very Venetian in style, right? Beautiful architecture, etc. And the gang is led by this kid, essentially. He's like in his 20s. God, that made me sound so old that is led by this guy who's in his 20s called Camorra. And basically they've got this big plot going on, but in the first one, things start unraveling pretty quickly when this malicious Grey King appears seemingly out of nowhere. This is kind of, as the third in the series, the stakes are higher, the drama is higher, but there is a character in the first book called Sabitha who is mentioned in passing as someone who is very important to Locke. In this book, we see how and why, and their storyline, because it's a fractured structure, we see how they met, how they grew up together, and what is happening between them now, and how contentious that is. Now, what I really enjoy about this is Sabitha has that real Irene Adler vibes. She reminds me of, and I can never remember her name, but if you've watched The Musketeers, there is an assassin thief in it who was married to the guy with the cleft lip. That guy, I can't remember his name. Anyway, and she is like this femme fatale, thief, assassin, unhinged woman, very decadent, very ladylike. That is what Sabitha is. Sabitha is Irene Adler from Sherlock. She is that kind of like heist mistress, likes to go it alone, soul woman, surrounded by men, can handle them very easily, etc. And I really, really like that. And I also really like that this story very much explores the internalized misogyny of all of the characters, because they're a gang of boys in the first two, and actually the way it's handled in the second one really shows that these characters are not misogynists, but they do misogynistic shit, which is really interesting, especially as like young men and then like as kids. And Sabitha obviously has a real issue with that. I really like that. I really liked that kind of discourse in this book. Now, as I said, problematic language, which means that Scott Litch still has work to do, but I do appreciate that when it comes to something topical like misogyny, he's dealing with it. And also at the moment there's this war happening and like the refugees are moving across. The way that's being handled is also very topical and very interesting. So there is just so much in this book that I just adore, and I cannot seem to find another fantasy series or author that I adore as much as this, because I feel like Jay Kristoff came pretty close with the Nevernight series, but his problematic stuff is just too much for me. I just can't handle that anymore, so I'm not reading any more of his books. I haven't even picked up his vampire books. I'm not interested. But if you know of an author that writes the same kind of dynamic dialogue that Scott Litch does, with the high stakes, high drama, is probably going to make... Like, I'm genuinely concerned at this point, because I'm going to cry, and I don't know why. I don't know what is going to happen that is going to make me cry, but the last 2 books have made me cry. So it's going to happen, and I'm terrified. I'm so close to the end. And I'm close to the edge too. So this is getting finished today. And then, as I said before, this is the one that I'm going to be finishing this vlog with. And what I will probably do is do a little read with me snippet whilst I work my way through it, because it's not particularly long, being a graphic novel. And then that will have been my 3 books that I tick off as having completed their backlist, which is really exciting. But I've already started going through my shelves, and I've already found at least 4 more books that are the last book of a backlist of an author. So there will be more vlogs like this. But for now, I'm going to go off and be traumatized, and then potentially traumatized again. So this will be 5 stars. Even if it doesn't make me cry, this will be 5 stars. I've loved it. I've loved every second. It's incredible to me that this has felt so quick, considering it's over 700 pages. I've loved it. I've loved every second. No crumbs, she ate, etc.
All I'm keeping track of is the weather, and there's no wind, no sun, nothing. 80 days and I'm not feeling better, but a sweet relief is finding me. There's no love under the portrait. Ain't got no loyalties, no one to please. I just got that glue. Rhythm ordinarily, setting my soul free.
Okay, so editing Hannah here. As you can see, I am sprinting, but I'm also editing this vlog. And the final clip where I wrapped up my thoughts on Bad Magic has corrupted, and I'm just going to give you real brief thoughts and then maybe have some suggestions for books that I can read in the next vlog. But basically, I loved Bad Magic. It was actually a lot more YA than I was expecting, because Skullduggery Pleasant is a middle grade. And I really liked that it's a middle grade, but Derek Landy has been told for years that he should write a YA series, and I feel like actually as a graphic novel series it was really violent, it was really clever, it was really insidious. Trigger warnings massively for clowns and jesters if you don't like those, but I really liked the way it built up a really strong moral lesson and a really interesting take on a mystery, and it felt like a proper procedural mystery with magic. Loved it. Gave it 5 stars. Okay, so for books for the next time I'm going to do this, the only spoiler I'm going to give you is With the Fire on High. So I'm not going to tell you when that vlog will be, because it will literally be whenever I can get around to this book, as I have other things that I'm doing. But when you see this pop up in a TBR, bear that in mind.
If you want to let me know you were here, feel free to leave a comment as a suggestion of a book that I could read for the next vlog, or just a rocket or moon so that I know that you're here. Rocket or moon emoji so I know that you were here. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint because it supports me and my content. Check out the links down below because I have a Patreon now, and most importantly, have a nice day.